My name is Kṛṣṇa-kīrti Dāsa. I'm the convener of the ISKCON India Scholars Board, and today I'm going to talk about the some of the problems with the Śāstric Advisory Council's Brahma-gāyatrī paper and their system of hermeneutics.
Yes.
Okay, this is a picture of a female sannyasa ceremony, and this is Guru Mata Jai Shri Devi, and this is this particular ashram is called Varṇāśrama, and it's claims, and it's in line. It's a Gaudiya Vaisnava institution in the line of Saraswati Thakur, and these are some Vyasa Puja offerings written by some ISKCON devotees for her Vyasa Puja. And the question is, so why do we care about this? We care about this because the Śāstric Advisory Council, in their paper on Brahma-gāyatrī, sent a representative to interview them, to talk about their, what's their perspective on Brahma-gāyatrī mantra and initiation and getting an eligibility to chant the Gayatri mantra. So they say that that women do not require it because they are Gayatri Swarupini, but men, they have to get the initiation in order to be eligible to chant it. Now compare that with Srila Prabhupada in his purport to Bhagavatam 3:24-40. He says that a woman cannot take sannyas because the Manu-samhita says that women must be always under the protection of a father, husband, or son. And he makes that in relation to Devahuti, who's of course the mother of Kapila Deva and a very topmost Vaishnavi. So the so about this slide here, that they also have on page 69. They make this statement. They say that Prabhupada didn't want us to implement Manu-smriti statements as evidenced by the following quote. And they quote a letter to Madhusudana, in which the letter says that according to Manu-smriti, you're all bleches, you can't touch Manu-samhita, and so forth like that. But in Prabhupada's books, he mentions Manu-samhita many times, and he does so with utmost reverence and with obviously the intent that we should actually follow it. Just like in the Gita 16.7, Srila Prabhupada criticizes modern society on the basis of Manu-smriti. He says that they don't follow social behavior according to Manu-samhita, and that the modern education is artificially devised a puffed up concept of womanhood life. And there are many other quotes here. So how is it that Srila Prabhupada did not want us to follow Manu-smriti with all these quotes? But then, with this one letter to a single individual devotee, all this is dismissed out of hand. So it's a little more thinkable because, well, one important point here is that Prabhupada's books actually are Shastra. So he says that the actual center is Shastra Dware. That's how you understand an incarnation, and generally the actual center is the Shastra. Among Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, Shastra is the center. So Prabhupada's books are actually Vaishnava Smriti. They're actually in the same category of books like Chaitanya Charitamrita, Hari Bhakti Vilas, and therefore Prabhupada's statements in his books have more authority than any of his other statements. So then how is it that this single letter to an individual is overturning all these statements? So where we're at on female sannyas, the SAC paper on Brahma-gāyatrī introduces a praman from a society that gives sannyas to women. And the important point is that this is the only reason that Srila Prabhupada gives against female sannyas. You will not see him giving it any other reason, is that it's against Manu-smriti, because Manu says that a woman must always be under the protection of a father, husband, or a son. But the SAC paper says this should not be implemented. Manu-smriti should not be implemented because of a single letter from Prabhupada to his disciple. So the SAC's declaration nullifies hundreds of Srila Prabhupada's other statements throughout his books, lectures, conversations in favor of Manu. So the conclusion here, or an inference, we can draw from this is that the SAC paper clears a philosophical path to female sannyas. That doesn't mean like the next month we're going to have female sannyasis. It's just going to take time, but the philosophical path is clear to it. So the question how we got here is really, we need to look at this overarching principle in the SAC system of hermeneutics. So this is really the keystone of it. So this is, I just want to quote here, this is there from page 2001 of their supplementary materials manual. It says, understanding tradition through Srila Prabhupada, accepting Prabhupada as the representative and conveyor of the essence of tradition and parampara, in the most appropriate way for understanding the application. So the problems here is that, the SAC gives no historical precedent for this. Traditional Orthodox Vaishnava lines have Shastra as the center. So why has no other Vedic sampradaya, whether Vaishnava or not, employed this principle? So the answer is actually is very interesting. Hridayananda Maharaj actually has given a refutation of this. In the 2023 edition of the ISKCON Communications Journal, Mother Urmila of the Śāstric Advisory Council, the chairperson, has given an article, a 40-plus page article about their system of hermeneutics. And Hridayananda Maharaj has also given a 20-page essay, basically, about his idea of how to understand Srila Prabhupada. And his idea is that Shastra is the center. We understand Srila Prabhupada, in line with the Shastra. So he says that his basic idea is that if we understand Srila Prabhupada as the topmost praman, even above Shastra, then it is not generalizable to other sampradayas. So he gives, on the next page, this is his logic. He says, although we follow Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, we cannot approach Shastra nor Sadhus except through Prabhupada. This means that we are not qualified to personally verify that Prabhupada has accurately represented Shastras and Sadhus. Thus we accept Prabhupada's teaching as faithful to Shastra and Sadhus, not because we have personally verified it, we are unqualified to do so, but rather because we know by realization that Prabhupada is a pure soul, and thus his teachings are faithful to Shastra and Sadhus. So that's actually quite familiar, that line of reasoning. But he gives this example. He says, let us apply these exact hermeneutic principles to impersonal teachings and see the result. Impersonalist students can make the following claims. He says, although we follow Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, we cannot approach Shastra nor Sadhus except through our impersonal Guru. This means that we are not qualified to personally verify that our impersonal Guru has accurately presented Shastra and Sadhus. Thus, we accept our impersonal Guru's teaching as faithful to Shastra and Sadhus, not because we have personally verified it, we are unqualified to do so, but rather because we know by realization that our impersonal Guru is a pure soul, and thus his teachings are faithful to Shastra and Sadhus. So what he's getting at here is that if you apply this to another sampradaya, then they're going to come up with their own idea of what's right based on their Guru as topmost, and it's not going to be correct. It's not going to be consistent with your answers, but their process is consistent with your answers. Basically, it's like playing a game of cricket, and then each team has its own set of rules for how they're going to play the game. So that's what's going on here. And so therefore, Maharaj, he says that because it's not generalizable to other sampradayas, Maharaj's conclusion implies that the SAC's overarching principle is not actually a principle. So that's a very important thing. You can't generalize it, and practically. So, Prabhupada, he gives a couple examples. There's a couple of examples from Srila Prabhupada in Bhagavatam, how he's actually applying Shastra as the center. So, in Bhagavatam 1.3.15, there's a question that comes up, is that, does an inundation happen at the end of every Manvantara? Sridhar Swami says it does not, but Jiva Goswami, he quotes Shastras such as the Markandeya Purana, Harivamsa to show that it does. So Jiva Goswami is right because the Shastra is the tiebreaker. It's the top-level tiebreaker. In Bhagavatam 6.19.13, there's a question that comes up, is Goddess Lakshmi always Jiva Tattva? because in the Dvaita philosophy, Dvaita Darshana, then you have the independent, which is Krishna, which is the Lord, and then you have the dependent, which is the jiva. So, Baladevi Vibhushana, in his Prema Ratnavali, he gives evidence from the Vishnu Purana that actually Goddess Lakshmi, she's the spiritual potency of the Lord, and therefore she's always all-pervasive with him. So she's not actually a jiva. So the Praman, so the Shastra again settles this doubt. It's the top-level tiebreaker. This is... So the SAC acknowledges that their Prabhupada-based system may create friction with other Shastra-based sampradayas. So Urmila Mataji, she mentions this in her 2023 article. She gives some hint of this, that they're aware of this. Now this is an important letter here. I'll just read this paragraph here. But other Vaishnava Shastra-based sampradayas revere their acharyas as much as ISKCON does Srila Prabhupada. So this is written by the late Professor M.A. Lakshmi Tatachar on 19th February 2019 to the GBC regarding female Diksha Gurus. Many of you may have not seen these letters, but this is just an excerpt from the whole letter, but it's well worth your time to read it. So his main point here is that all Indian systems of philosophy come from the Vedas, and then a realized acharya, a fully realized, God-realized person, understands this, and then by the Shishtachar, he communicates this experience to his successive acharyas and followers, and it is by the Shishtachar, or actually the Sadachar, they mean the same thing, that they come to understand these things. And so his main point here is that to understand these points in Shastra, independently of the Shishtachar, is practically impossible. Therefore, the Shishtachar, or Yad Yad Acharati Shreshtas, as he quotes here, is of utmost importance in understanding it. So this is really kind of like how we understand things through Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada did this, he said that, he said we should do this and everything. So we do like that. So this is exactly how the Shastra-based Vaishnava Sampradayas also understand it. And so it's not so different from us, actually. So the SAC's Prabhupada-centered system is not actually Prabhupada-centered. So I'm going to read this quote in full here. It's over right here on the right-hand side. This is from page 33 of their supplementary materials manual. It says, quote, "We do well to find the traditional principles, see how they have been applied in various circumstances, both ancient and by Srila Prabhupada, and then adjust for the particular needs and circumstances of our time." So right there, this is just basically saying that sometimes what Srila Prabhupada says is applicable, and at other times what these other acharyas or what the Shastra says is applicable. So it's really kind of like what's driving this is not really that Prabhupada has said something, but it's really kind of like, what do we need? What's practical to use? So it's basically a purpose-driven methodology. So here's some examples of this. So recent GBC ruling affirming disciples can initiate in the presence of the gurus. So the SAC system can reach this decision. So one example of this is the 1998 book by the GBC called Gurus and Initiations in ISKCON. And if you go back and read that book, you'll see in that book that there's just essay after essay after essay addressing this point about disciples initiating in the presence of the Prabhupada, and they're condemning this. They're condemning this point. Essay after essay, literally, in that book. And also the example of Prabhupada and his guru Saraswati Thakur. Both of them, Srila Prabhupada in the last 4 or 5 months of his life, he did not say that, okay, you start initiating. He actually had Ritvik acharyas. He appointed disciples on his behalf to initiate. So by his example, he showed. So are we on the path to female sannyas? So just a little summary here. The SAC's overarching principle of Prabhupada's Vani as the topmost praman is inapplicable outside of ISKCON and therefore not a principle. The SAC doesn't seem to have been so aware of how, well, the question just didn't seem to arise how the Shastra as center Vaishnava sampradayas also revere their guru as much as we revere their gurus. I mean, many of you in this room are from like Sri Sampradaya, other sampradayas, and you very well know what is the place of Ramanuja. Absolute reverence for Ramanuja in those systems. And as we see that the SAC's system can actually accommodates overriding Prabhupada on time, place, and circumstance, and basically when can this not be done? So something like female sannyas is much more thinkable now. There's a path cleared to it. So the last thing I want to discuss, this will be a few more slides, is the SAC system. It takes on its first big case. So Mother Milla talks about the cases in her 2023 ICG paper. There's just a few, I would say, anodyne problems. They're not really, big problems. But she talks about topics, a big topic that they haven't taken on. So the Brahma-gāyatrī mantra in ISKCON, Varṇāśrama Bhakti principle or detail, this is the SAC's first topic that they applied their system to. So how have they done? So here's the GBC resolution that resulted from that. So the GBC resolution here on the left here, and the full one is on the right here in this screenshot. It says, gurus and those who recommend initiation candidates shall not make any distinction of birth, nationality, race, ethnicity, previous samskar, marital status, gender, or classifications within the Varna as to who would be eligible to take those vows and receive those mantras in full at first and second initiation. So this is important, it's to receive those mantras in full. This law is based on the SAC's conclusions. There's the SAC, it's basically right there almost verbatim in the SAC paper. And the SAC makes another significant claim that all the qualification for chanting Brahma-gāyatrī extends to all Vedic mantras. The SAC gives many examples, Prabhupada's Pranam mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, any Bhagavatam verse with pranava in it, Sri Upanishad, etc. And they also mention in their paper that Prabhupada even had Allen Ginsberg chant the Brahma-gāyatrī. So, now, there's one thing I'd like to mention here. It's relevant to mention is the experience between Tenkalai and Vadagalai differences. So this is a book. I bought this actually in Tirupati from the bookstore there. This is by R.K. Seshadri. And so some of the significant differences between Tenkalai and Vadagalai on caste. Some of the differences from the Tenkalai we follow, and some of the differences from the Vadagalai we follow. Just like on the Vadagalai side, Nitya and Naimittika karmas, we don't reject those. We only reject the Kama karyas, not the Nitya and Naimittika. But on the on the left-hand side, initiation to angas or preparatory steps in teaching can be from a preceptor of any caste. So we're very liberal in that sense, and the Tenkalais are also very liberal in that. And this yellow highlighted here, this is actually what we have, what the almost very similar contention we're having here. The word Om and Om Namo Narayanaya can be pronounced by all, and the Om, this is on the Tenkalai side, on the Vadagalai side, the Om and Om Namo Narayanaya cannot be pronounced by non-Brahmanas. So this is considered one of the foremost differences between the sampradayas. Now, what's our stand on this? So Srila Sanatana Gosvami's opinion from Hari Bhakti Vilas. So he says here, he quotes he gives a shloka here, is that he talks about the Sarvistri Shudra Mantravarjitaha, that he talks about that when doing puja, that women and Shudras, they should worship the Lord but without the mantra. So this is from the Hari Bhakti Vilas. And Sanatana Goswami goes further to clarify that. Like, what does this mean? What is this mantra? How can you worship without the mantra? So here he says in his Digdarshani Tika that the word mantra vivarjitaha, without the mantra here, means without the pranava, om, which means these mantras should be uttered without them uttering the pranava om. So like he gives the example, Om Vasudevaya Namaha, so he'd say that you just not say Om, the women and Shudras and so forth like that. So the significance of Sanatana Gosvami's commentary is that the commentary of Sanatana Goswami is actually even more important than the Hari Bhakti Vilas itself. And the reason given is that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commented that Gopal Bhatta, some portions of Gopal Bhatta Goswami's works has been influenced by smarta influences, and therefore it's very difficult to understand. Therefore, it is better, Prabhupada says, therefore it is better to actually go to the Digdarshani Tika of Sanatana Goswami to understand, what's Hari Bhakti Vilas. So, basically, the SAC says no discriminative generation, varna, or chanting of pranava whatsoever, but Sanatana Goswami says that in the context of doing puja, that the Om Kara shouldn't be chanted. So there's a difference here. So there's an important difference. And in conclusion here, so we have an issue about the red flag. So we're just going to enumerate, what we've reached up to now. So the SAC recommendation contradicts Sanatana Goswami. The GBC resolution is based on the SAC recommendation. The GBC resolution consequently also contradicts Sanatana Goswami. The SAC's overarching principle has no precedence in Vaishnava practice. It is shown to be inapplicable outside of ISKCON. It cannot be implemented outside of ISKCON, then it is not a principle. The Shastra is center different sampradayas that have Shastra as center also have utmost respect for their founder acharyas. So having Shastra as center and having utmost respect for our founder acharya is not incompatible. The SAC paper gives testimony from Varṇāśrama, which is an ashram, which is a spiritual society which gives sannyas to women. Srila Prabhupada said that such societies are called spiritual societies. We should not be taking advice from them or quoting them. The SAC also says ISKCON members should not implement Manu-samhita, which in turn invalidates hundreds of Srila Prabhupada's instructions, which clearly have modern day applications. So taken all together, these are just many, many red flags, and this suggests that a review of the SAC and especially of their hermeneutic system is in order. And, especially ISKCON India, because of our closeness to the tradition and many scholars, that we can be of some service in that regard. So, last point here is the Ritvikism is an historic example of following Prabhupada in a way that is against our previous acharyas. We do not want to become anti-Rupanuga Prabhupada-nugas. That's very important. So we should not join their ranks. That concludes the presentation. Are there any questions?